comes to giving a sales presentation, what is free fall and why does it matter? I'm Scott Sylvan Bell. I'm coming to you live from Sacramento, California on a perfect day to talk about sales and a perfect day to talk about your sales presentation. Now here's the thing, for the last 7 or 8 years, I've worked daily with salespeople, and one of the things that I found is sometimes you as a salesperson, me as a salesperson, we don't have words or idea descriptions to explain what we're going through. So what I did was I drew out on the board here, we're going to use a visual lesson today, of what free fall is and how it affects you. Now here's the thing, this is half of a bell curve on purpose. Now I've also used a generic sales presentation, so for whatever you do, you modify accordingly, okay? So let's just say that I'm selling widgets and I have an intro and I meet with my buyer. And we start talking and the buyer starts giving me pushback. Well, I'm not going to have a lot of frustration, anxiety, panic, or fear because I haven't been there long enough. I don't have enough time invested. So the higher of time, energy, and effort you invest in a project or whatever you're selling, the more degree of free fall you can have. So let's just say I go through the intro stage and I get to the rapport stage and I build rapport whatever way that I do. You know, I may get some pushback from the buyer and they don't want to continue. So I may not have material. I know for a fact I don't have momentum. I can have a little bit of frustration. I can have some anxiety, but I'm not really going to have panic and I'm not going to have fear, okay? Because I don't have enough time, energy, or effort invested in the deal. So let's say I set my agenda and I start getting some pushback. Once again, I might not have momentum. I might not have material. I may be frustrated and I may start getting anxiety. Okay, this is about the point where I start watching salespeople start to have issues, okay? So let's say I go through the introductory phase, I go through the rapport phase, I get to the agenda, and then I get to the discovery or question asking phase to determine what could be done. This is my investigation mode. I might have spent, let's say, 20 to 25 minutes at this point with the buyer, and let's say I feel the sale losing the grasp. Let's say the sale, in my mind and in my heart, I'm losing the deal. Well, this is about where the buyer starts seeing it on you. This is about where the buyer goes, something's wrong here and I don't know what it is. I've spent enough time with this guy to baseline him and know how he acts or what this girl does, but I feel like there's an issue going on here, and this is where they start mirroring you. This is where they start having issues as well because you lose your form of leadership. Sales is a form of leadership. That person wants to see that you're in control of your emotions, and if something goes wrong, if there's an issue, they know that everything's okay if you're okay, okay? So if you look at what the Italian study was done about mirror neurons, what it says is, roughly translated, whatever way I'm acting, you're going to accept that and act likewise. So like when you see people who haven't seen each other for a while, you can have somebody who's like melancholy, no big deal, and then they see a friend they haven't seen for a while, like, oh my goodness, I haven't seen you for a while, everything's good, everything, and that person gets excited too. Conversely, I may have somebody that I don't like, that I'm in a happy mood, and all of a sudden I see them and I get angry. Well, they have a chance of getting angry too. So just know that mirror neurons can work for you and they can work against you in the sales process. If you don't like your buyer, chances are good they're not going to like you. And this is about, in the discovery phase, is where I see salespeople start to go into free fall. Free fall is exactly this. Free fall is where they're out of material, there's no momentum felt in the sales process, there's frustration, and the frustration is I'm not closing my deal. The anxiety is I don't know what to do to move forward. I don't know how to get the momentum. The panic starts coming in from like all the other salespeople are looking at me hoping that I'm going to bring in a deal. My family's looking at me hoping I'm going to bring in the deal. The management's looking at me and I'm hoping I'm going to bring in the deal. And the fear is if I don't succeed here, if I don't find success in the sales process, what does that say about me as a person? What does that say about me and my abilities? What does that say about me and my paycheck? What does that say about me and my ability to provide for my family? Okay? So there's all these things that go on and salespeople lose their mind. So there's salespeople that I've trained, there's salespeople that I previously worked with, they will call me and say, hey Scott, I need some help. I need to pinpoint where I'm at. Where did I lose my deal? Where did I lose my call? Most of the time, the lost deal comes from free fall because we get caught up in fearful emotions. We get caught up in what isn't going to happen. We get caught up in like, what do I got to do to just maintain the status quo and sell the bare minimum? Or what do I got to do to discount the most that I can to make this deal happen? And so what the biggest problem salespeople face is not realizing where they're at in this process and what it's doing for them with the buyer. So let's say that as a salesperson, you've gone through the introduction phase, the rapport phase, the agenda phase, the discovery phase, you've given your pre-zone, you've given your demonstration, You get to price, you roll price, you give the numbers, you're like, here's how much it's going to be. Well, because the work wasn't done up front and things weren't answered up front and the tough questions weren't given and no decision had been made, right? There was no commitment in the sales process. This is the purest form of free fall that I see. And this is where salespeople absolutely lose it and get in the most amount of trouble, and they give up the most amount on their commissions, and they slip up and they say stuff and they do stuff that they shouldn't do, okay? So let's just go through this again. They get an objection. They don't know how to deal with it because the buyer didn't have any commitments, they didn't have any buy-in. They're out of material. They haven't practiced, they don't have any word tracks, they don't have any questions or stories. By the way, questions and stories are the two most powerful forms of communication. They don't know how to reverse, so they are completely out of momentum, okay? Now, 100% frustration can be felt from the buyer. Anxiety can be felt from the buyer. Panic can be felt from the buyer. Fear can be felt from the buyer. Now, there's two moves for the buyer to do. The buyer goes, I'm out, I'm going to eject, or the buyer goes, greed gland. Greed gland. This guy is at his worst moment, or this girl is at their worst moment, and I'm going to do everything I can to take advantage of them. I'm going to do everything I can to get the best deal. Now, here's the thing that you got to realize as a salesperson, that most salespeople answer for free fall is discounts and giveaways. Okay? Discounts and giveaways. And so what will happen is, maybe let's start with a $20,000 project. Normally, let's say you give a 2.5% discount. That's normal. Okay, 2.5% is going to be about, what, $500. Things are going to be good. Things are going to be okay. You're going to be all right. Because the buyer's going to go 2.5%, $500. I could see that happening. That's a deal. Like if I go to a store, they may give me a 3% discount for a credit card. The buyer goes, all right, 2%, 2.5%, or the salesperson says 2.5% isn't good enough. Let's go 5%. 5% makes sense because, like, if you're a member of most places that give you a card, there's some big box stores that give you a 5% discount. Normal, people can accept that. But pure free fall jumps typically from a 5% discount to a 10% discount all the way to 15%. Okay, your numbers may be a little bit different, but you should pay attention to this anyway. So 15% is when you go to most stores and you look at most stores, that's about where they start when they're starting to close the process. And let's just say that you have a $20,000 project and you're discounting 15%, that's $3,000 off. In the mind of the buyer, they start going, how real is this deal and where is the end on the money? Well, somebody who's in really bad free fall is going to offer a 20% discount thinking, look, here's what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut to the chase. I'm going to give this buyer a super huge discount. I'm going to give them all sorts of free upgrades. Whatever it totals out is going to be about a 20% discount. They roll the price without getting a commitment of saying, if I can give you some sort of a discount, then what? Because they're in such a hurry to close the deal because they have frustration, anxiety, panic, and fear. Pure free fall, okay? And so there's times where guys that I've trained will call me, they're in a cell, and they're like, Scott, can you help me close this deal, right? Because I know their industry, I know what they sell, I know their pricing. I'm like, yeah, no problem. Let's talk it through. And I start talking with the buyer, and for me asking the questions that I do, I'm going to tell you something. There was no commitment made to the sales process. There was no commitment made to a discount, and this leads to frustration. So once again, you have to understand, if as a salesperson, you have frustration, anxiety, panic, and fear when somebody's trying to help you close a deal, or you're going back into the sales process and you're not getting this figured out. If you've given up too much money, too much of a discount, your buyer starts going into free fall as well. It's not just you, it's your buyer too, okay? Super huge. You have to understand, it's not just you, it's your buyer as well. So since you're in panic, they're in panic, they don't know what to do. Right? So think about the last time that you were in panic mode and something crazy was going on in your life. Were you there to make decisions? No. You needed somebody else to help you. You needed somebody else to be the person who's going to walk you through and say, like, we're going to be okay. Okay? Last time you had anxiety and you had things going on in your life, didn't it help to have somebody who was the person with the clarity and like, hey, we can do this? The last time you had fear, didn't it make sense when there was somebody saying, hey, everything's going to be okay? That's why when things are going wrong in your sales process, you have to show confidence. You have to show that you have the ability to talk the person through what's going on. Otherwise, you hit free fall, they hit free fall. Okay, so here's the thing. If you've hit free fall in a sales process recently, leave a comment down in the box below. Hey, I've hit free fall. I'm going to tell you, as a salesperson, I've done it. Like, I didn't have material, I didn't have content. When I was in the beginning of my sales world, when I first started selling insurance in the early 2000s, I was horrible. right? I would hit this all the time, but I didn't have a way to describe what was going on to my manager and tell him, hey, here's what was going on. I'm not closing deals because this is what the situation is. I have a lack of material. I have no momentum at the end of the call or wherever I've lost a buyer. I'm frustrated because I'm not closing a deal because I spent time, energy, and effort with the person and now they're not buying from me. I have anxiety, I've got panic, and I've got fear, and all these things are going on, okay? So as a salesperson, you absolutely have to recognize where you're at in the sales process and what's going on. And like I've mentioned before, you have to record your sales presentation. Now, depending upon if you're going to record it with a client, depending upon the state or the country you're in, you may have to get permission. I'm not an attorney. You should role play with people that you work with, especially people who are better than you. And if you have to pay somebody to do it, you're much better off than not paying them, because you're going to get past a lot of this. And there is time, energy, and effort involved with you learning how to close deals. There's time, energy, and effort involved with you sitting through deals where you're going through free fall and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I got to remember that if I'm showing frustration, anxiety, panic, or fear, so is the buyer going to start picking up on that, and they're going to feel it right here, and they're going to say something's wrong and there's an issue, okay? Free fall is one of the worst places to be as a salesperson because it starts becoming your norm. It starts becoming what's going on. So if you can get somebody to ride with you, if you could pay a coach or a mentor, if you could come in for extra role play, all those things really help out. So there you go. You got one thing to do from here, just one thing. Find the subscribe button and click on it every time I send out a video. You'll get an update. This is Scott Bell Consultant sending out another fantastic video. You should check it out, which you should. We'll see you soon. Aloha.